So it's 1 minute past 11. Welcome everyone to the MiB International's mingle on self-leadership. Please, Anne has put the link to the Padlet on the chat box. Go and check the Padlet. Please leave your LinkedIn details there for networking, but also for the lottery at the end of the mingle. We will be recording this first part of this mingle, but don't worry, it's only the Henrika's part, so we will have some English content for us. Further ado, let me introduce you to Henrika. Today we will have this interactive mingle where we will talk about practicing self-leadership in different areas and situations in life. And I'm very happy to introduce to you our inner success coach and MiB International active, Henrika Tonder. Please, Henrika.
Hi.
The floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you, Inka. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for coming today. I'm really excited to be able to connect with international mothers in business. And whether you're a mom for a physical child or a mom for your inner child, it doesn't matter because motherhood is something we just all get to do, even with ourselves. So yes, thank you for being here. And I just wanted to just to give you a big picture of who I am so that you know who is talking to you and sort of where I'm coming from, just to give you a quick brief before we just go into the self-leadership part. So maybe Rosa, if you could put the next slide. Yep. So my international background is a mix of Finnish, French, and Finnish when it comes to the countries where I've been living. So an international mom, and I've spent half of my life in Finland, about the ages are there like to 18, and then France, and then back to Finland again, and been living in Finland for the past 7 years. I came back with a French husband from France, and we have 3 boys who are almost all teenagers now. The youngest is 10, but they're almost 15, 13, and 10. Very active guys. So we have a lot of life and driving and extra everything going on as well. I'm also a superwoman syndrome survivor, trying to do everything perfectly and being a great professional, a great friend, a great mom, a great person, a great wife, everything. That's when I burned down and crashed in 2011. So I've been transforming my life and leading myself out of that ever since. Which then led me to a life reset and going after my purpose and finding really out what that is, to be able to live a life with inner success, which also led me to my career shift from, I was working in international business, in marketing, communication, and purchasing. And this path and journey led me to a career shift and progressively into a coach, which I'm super excited and happy to be able to be doing today as a job. So I help people create inner success and a success that feels good inside out, helping them find clarity on their values, on their vision, on their mission, and really just creating the kind of lives that makes them happy and that turns them on. So basically that's who I am. And now I also wanted to hear a little bit about you, like where are you, just to have an idea in the chat. Could you type in like from which country of origin, or where are you listening into today, so that we could just get an idea of the international spread of our international moms. So if you have the chat box You can see it down in the at the bottom of the screen. If you could just type in the country of origin, or the country where you're living in now, or the country of a mixed family. I don't know what kind of origins or cultures are you living with in your daily lives. So we have France listening from Helsinki, Hannah from Germany, so Karen from France, Lydia from Portugal. Great. So just keep on, like, I love this international feeling, because that's what I also feel really much like as an international worldwide citizen. Moramai from Mexican, Ida, Finland, half Russia. Okay, so I love it. We have Venezuela, Anne currently living in Helsinki, raising a South African, raising a daughter with spouse from South Africa. Okay, so we have a lot of people here from different parts of the world. So welcome everyone. So we could, now let's dive into the topic of today. So talking about self-leadership. It's like, I'd like to know, what does self-leadership mean to you? What comes up in your mind when you hear the word self-leadership? Because again, this could mean so many different things for all of us, and it's really about the meaning we give to it. So I'd love to hear, what does self-leadership mean to you, or what even comes up as a word or something? Just also feel free to comment that in the chat box, and we can sort of go from there to see what it means. But if nothing comes up for you now, then we could basically go to the next slide, where then I can share what I wanted to. Okay, so we have taking responsibility for your own life. Yes, from Dana. Thank you. Yes, that's very much what it also is. And so today I wanted to share what I mean by self-leadership, and also what I wanted to give to you today here are some patterns and some models of thinking that you could use with yourself in your journey of self-leadership. So maybe we could have the next slide, Rosa. So yes, so for me, self-leadership is about, I'm just trying to see where I can put the comments here. Yes, so self-awareness and conscious leadership. And for me, it's really important to break these out in two different things, because then we can focus and get actionable on the self part and the leadership part. Maybe the next slide, please. Yes. So with self-awareness, I really mean listening to one's insights and tuning in with what feels like what's right for oneself, and being honest with one's insight, going rather inwards and tuning in with that, then being so focused on the outside conditionings and what's expected out of us. So that is the self part and self-awareness. And then the leadership is about acting wisely, the way I bring it up here, so that we have both insights and action. And when we combine those two, then we get into this other possibility, which is like, oh, wow. And then I wonder what's possible if I start tuning in with myself and leading myself inside out. So the first model I wanted to share to you, if we could have the next slide, please. Okay, so it's really about locating oneself. This is about the self-awareness part, where unless we're able to locate ourselves and know where we're coming from, and how we function and how we think, how we feel, in which mental state we are being in, it's really hard to start doing anything about anything. So just, Rosa, please, the next slide. So I have this one super simple, and I find it extremely efficient, especially in the self-leadership part, in the daily reflections and growing and developing myself, because then I'm not always in need of having a feedback of someone, which is also another great way to develop and lead oneself, is to really listen into other people's feedbacks about oneself and one's behavior and whatever that creates. But if we don't have that, then having patterns or some models of reflection, I find them super useful, and my clients really appreciate also that as well. So one line, basically this is simple, but the question with this one is, am I functioning above the line or below the line? Which is quite simple, because then we can easily identify ourselves where we are. So it seems simple, but if we can have the next slide, we'll get a little bit of more of insight of what's actually going on. So even if it looks simple, there's much going on, because we as human beings are complex beings, and we have feelings and emotions and thoughts and beliefs and perceptions, and we have distortions in our thinking, in the way how we take the world in. We have filters. So there's a lot going on, and there's all what we have come to believe and who we are and our environment. So basically this is, you can see the line in the middle, and below the line we have a more dramatic mental and emotional landscape, and above the line we have more curiosity, more openness, more flowing connection, a sense of play, willingness to learn, and when we're above the line, you can see we're more like in a reflective state, even like, I wonder, and we take responsibility also, the way, as we had the comment in the chat box coming in, like, how am I creating this, and what's my part in this? And also when we're functioning in a mental and emotional state above the line, we're more willing and able to ask questions like, what's good about this or that I'm not getting, or what else is possible? And then when you look at below the line, there we have more of a mental state and behavior, inner or outwardly, of blame, of feeling not enough. We keep our attention on problems. It's more problem focused. There's often just one way, the right way, a very conclusive way of looking at the world. And we might feel confused and not enough. So this is one way of identifying oneself. And so if we could have the next slide, Rosa, please. This shows when we go below the line, when we're more in the drama state, then we have the drama triangle. So the first pattern was the line. The second pattern that you can use with yourself and ask yourself, am I above the line or below the line? And the drama triangle, you can identify yourself with being like having a behavior of a victim, hero, or a villain. And this is the drama triangle, is something where basically we all are, even though we might have one of these behaviors or characters or almost like personas that are more predominant in the way we usually or habitually think, feel, or then also behave, we also often go from one to another, even within minutes sometimes, in our attitudes, in our inner attitudes. So typically, for example, a hero, like a victim, is someone, so all of these characters have something in common, is around the relationship around problems. So when we're above the line, we're more inclined to think in possibilities and questions, and with a wandering mind. When we are below the line, we are having a relationship with problems, which for a victim mindset sounds like They're waiting for someone else to fix their problems. So a victim typically wants to be rescued, spends much time whining, feels helpless, feels powerless, and most of the time just feels as the effect of everything happening to them. That's a typical way to think for a victim. And then a hero again, a hero is there to solve problems. So they want to rescue everybody else, and they want to be of help, and they seek temporary relief by trying to solve problems which they sometimes have to come up with themselves, so that they can solve the problems, because that's a way of being in action and avoiding the discomfort that they otherwise get while being faced with the problematic feelings or thoughts. And then the villain again keeps attention and focus on the problem, and has to have it existing, the problem, because then the villain can always blame and point fingers to someone else and say, hey, it's their fault, it's your fault. So basically the villain really is always blaming either someone else, outside circumstances, or also themselves. And it all is sort of dramatic, and they all play dynamically together. So if we are in relationships with people, or I would even say with ourselves sometimes, like with parts of ourselves, this can be really like a stormy, dramatic, emotional and mental landscape going on. So that if we tend to act as victims, for example, then the people who we tend to spend time with, they might act out as heroes and wanting to rescue us. And the more we want to be rescued, the more the hero then wants to save us, and then we're stuck in that relational dynamic. And do we have any questions about this, for example? Because I see that the time also is running. And I wanted to see if you had some questions about this already now. Trying to get the chat box. No questions for now. Inka, you don't see any questions either. Okay. If you, no. Okay, if at any time you have any questions, just please raise your hand or send in questions. We can also take them in at the end. But maybe also we could jump forward the 3 next slides, because this is just to present a little bit more of each of those roles, but we can go to the next one. So basically what I want you to remember from this, from this pattern as a tool to self-reflect and self-lead yourself, is to stop, pause, and to check in with yourself. Where am I coming from? Like in this relationship with this person, the way I'm responding, am I responding through a blaming attitude, or am I responding from a victim attitude? Am I being below the line, or am I being above the line? And then another question that I find super useful is also just asking, when you stop and start listening to yourself, is what do I need? And what do I really need now? And we sometimes we think we do know what we need, but it isn't before and until we really stop and take a breath and tune in with ourselves in that moment that we might realize that there's something beneath the surface, that what we thought we needed in the moment actually is something else, and we go to a deeper level with ourselves. So what do I need? And what do I need in terms of self-leadership is also super important in anticipating and in planning and designing your life, because asking yourself, what do I need? What do I need daily? What do I need weekly? What do I need monthly? What do I need yearly? I don't know, but just having the kind of ongoing questioning with yourself, and then really planning that in your calendar, because if it's not in the calendar, it won't get done. So prioritizing yourself and your needs as well. And then the what's my part in this as a third question can be useful as well. And then could you also put the next slide, because I wanted to quickly also mention is like, okay, there are different ways and everybody has their own ways and their own stages of where they are at in their journeys of self-leadership and self-development, and whether it's about career or whether it's about family or whether it's about relationship to money or to body. Lives are very different, but there are certain things that are common to everybody and that are useful to keep in mind, in my sense, of why we fail to lead ourselves, so that we can then be aware of, oh, okay, maybe I'm doing this thing here, or maybe I am in this trap this time, or so that we can just sort of paint out the minefield and then start flagging the traps in general and flagging our own traps so that we don't fall into the traps over and over and over again. So I wanted to bring out three, Rosa, if you can put the next one. 3 ideas like blind spots, negativity bias, and thinking traps that keep us away from being able to lead ourselves in the way we would probably and actually want to do in the first place. So just quickly, next slide, please, would be on the blind spots. So just remembering and keeping this in mind, because there's nothing new about anything that I'm sharing with you today, but it's just to keep these things in mind and refresh them, because we tend to forget and not remember all of these things. So blind spots, we don't see things as they are, but we see things as, we see them as we are. This quote from Anais Nin is a great reminder of there are things that we don't always see. And that we don't, it's just a blind spot and we're not able to spot it unless someone helps us to, or unless we're really curious about ourselves and committed to honestly inquiring much of the time. So as an example of what insight can create, the next slide, I wanted to show you this one. Like you all have seen the FedEx logo, for example, and I just wonder, have any of you ever seen a arrow in this logo before? So you can type in the comments if you have seen an arrow, or even just open your mic or say something. But most of the people who've seen this logo hundreds and thousands of times, yes, I have comments like, only now when you mention it, okay. And probably now that you've seen it, even though you've seen this logo many, 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 many times before, you've never paid attention to it. And I think what would probably happen is that every time from now on that you will see this logo, you will actually not be able to not see it anymore. So this is the sort of an instant effect of getting an insight of something that was a blind spot before, but that comes evident to us right after. So the next slide is just another example of another type of blind spot where, for example, I just tried to illustrate with this image the fact that we don't see how we are like other people. Like, for example, I could tell my husband, oh my God, you're just like your dad. You're acting out just like your dad, or you're thinking just like your dad, or, and the person really often just dynamically does not see that. But people outside of us, or we don't see our blind spots. And he could just tell me the same thing, like, you're just like your mom, or you're just like this and that, or you behave, and I don't see it. But as soon as I then realize it, I'm able to do something about it when it's not a blind spot anymore. So just gaining the insight and knowing about the blind spot helps. Then the next one, quickly about the negativity bias. We all know that we are much more attached, like the negative things stay on our minds for so much longer. You can get like a load of positive praise and feedback, but you just remember the one negative thing, the one thing that felt like a stab in your heart, or the one thing that was like something like a critique. And somehow we're just wired to look for the critique and the negative feedback from people, and it really stays. So in the next slide, I wanted to show you that the negativity bias is the thing that has a dynamic effect on whether we see a glass half empty or half full, which means that we much more often see it half empty because of the negativity bias, without us being negative or pessimistic or by nature or by personality. It's just that what the research says, the science and the neuroscience and research about relationships is really showing that actually for us to be able to get a neutral effect in close relationships, the scale is 5 to 1 in terms of positive feedback. Like for the relationship to be able to feel like it's good and neutral, we should be getting or giving 5 times more positive feedback or a positive comment to someone than negative for it to be able to be equal. So this 5 to 1 is really good to keep in mind, just as a reminder as well. And the last trap, the third trap that I wanted to bring out, next slide, is actually the thinking traps we are having in our head, and the stories that the stories and the excuses that we tell ourselves, and that are ways for us to avoid action and doing something about stuff often. So I call them the thinking traps, and the next slide will sort of just give you an overview. Oh, first we have the it's not about the nail. So this was just to, you can actually, this is a funny, super funny video that you can go and watch if you don't know it already on, just tap on Google, it's not about the nail. It's super funny, and it's actually a mix of the blind spot and the storytelling that we tell ourselves. Where this, the girl with the nail in her head, I don't know if you see it there on the picture, but she has a nail in her head, and she's speaking to the guy, saying, complaining about how her sweaters get torn and how she can't sleep at night, how her head is hurting. And the guy just looks at her and says like, yeah, but you have a nail in your head. And she's like, no, it's not about the nail. And she even gets really annoyed, like, you always try to fix my problems. So basically here we have a real like a victim mindset, which is super well explained and shown in this video. So just put it's not about the nail on Google, and it's funny. So here we have the thinking traps, and I just wanted to show you here for you to keep in mind the way we sort of fail in our self-leadership, because we label and judge things as right or wrong, or our minds compare, like they seek for what's better and what's worse, creating competition and comparison. Or we go out in the future and then get anxious and we want things more and fast, which then leads us expecting much more and having high expectations. And then, or we tend to go into the past, and when we go into the past and spend too much time there, we get depressed, worried, start feeling heavy and sticky, or we conclude and project, assume and expect. So these are just things that I quickly wanted for you to have an idea about, in terms of catching yourself up when you go about, when you hear yourself thinking, oh, this is good or bad or right or wrong, she is good or bad, right or wrong, or I am good or bad or right or wrong. Well, in that case, you could just stop yourself and say, oh, what else is possible, or interesting point of view that I have this point of view, or just like stop that automatic way of going further into the thinking traps. So just to quickly wrap up, I wanted to, the next slide, please, Rosa. I wanted just to then tell you, well, how can we then lead ourselves successfully? And I hope that just by using all of these, like some of these models which speak to you or not, but the ones that resonate with you, that you could start having them with you in your everyday lives and reflect yourself through them. But just to sort of, yeah, please, Rosa, you can put the next slide. So I wanted to still like sort of conclude the different solutions here that I really think are super essential if we boil things down into what really matters, is to value your desires and to dream big, to give that direction and to give that that drive to your actions in your everyday life, and then to get real and flag your traps. So that was really about acknowledging to yourself and becoming curious about how you might be able to play out blind spots, negativity bias, thinking traps, and which are your favorite or branded dramatic personas that you go into inside of your mind and emotions and thinking between the victim, villain, and the hero. And then also to hardwired mental states into neural traits, sort of like hardwiring happiness is spending much, more time on, actually you can, Rosa, go forward, because yeah, so must be dreaming to design the life you want. The next one actually just is about dreaming in all these areas, because sometimes, so what's important here is that we just have one dream, or we have a dream in terms of love or dating or family or home or friends, but we forget about these other areas of our life. So what I am really advocating is that let's not forget about all of the important areas in our life and dare to dream for real, to give direction and to give drive and to turn ourselves on. And the next slide, that was about flagging the traps and cutting the crap excuses that I called excuses. So this was about identifying yourself, whether you're the villain, hero, or victim. And then the next slide, so that we can just get into the Q&As and the mingle, was about the dream derailers. And I won't spend much more time on that here, but it's basically just different variations and flavors of excuses that we use without even noticing them in our daily lives, between the I don't care, or this is just the way it's always been, or I've already done enough, don't ask more of me. So we don't really have the time to go further into those today, but we all tell ourselves excuses. So to start listening into the ways how we excuse ourselves and justify our limiting stories is a great way. And then the next slide is staying with the good. So the most important words we tell ourselves are the one we tell ourselves, because our minds only listen to the words we say and the pictures we make. So this is really about paying attention to how we speak to ourselves, and to also stay longer on the good part and the positive, to be able to keep in mind that 5 to 1 in terms of how I praise myself, how I speak to myself, and how I speak to others in positive rather than negative ways. So the next slide is just giving you a couple of questions on how you can stay longer on something that is already positive, so that it will get hardwired in your brain, because the more time you spend on it, the more it will stay in your brain. So just 3 questions. How does it get even better than this when it's already great? Which we don't tend to do, because we're like, oh, this is already great, I don't want more. Or what's good about this that I'm not yet getting, is another thing that will start, when you use those questions, they will start hardwiring literally happiness into your brain. And then the next slide, this is the last thing I wanted to sort of leave you with. The last tool is just, even though I'm not supposed to tell there are shortcuts, because there are no real shortcuts in the sense of we always have to do the work in terms of self-leadership, but I do have noticed, and I'm super confident with still sharing this one thing with you, if there would be one thing to shift or one thing to keep from this moment here, and that I would hope you would start using, is, next slide, just changing one word in your head instead of saying yes but, or thinking yes but, like I would love to change, to have that new job, but I don't know how to do a CV, or I don't know to do this, or I would love to have new friends, but I'm such a shy person. So whatever the excuse is after that, to have this shortcut is, I would recommend that you listen to yourself, you stop yourself, you cut the but, because I think the only but you should be having is the one you're sitting on, and then you replace it with and, which will just amplify the creativity in your mind and force your mind to start looking for new neural pathways to finish that sentence in a way you've not done before, because you're not using the old autopilot anymore. So that was my suggestion. Please use this. It's like a booster. And if ever you want to go, I have a free starter kit about becoming unstoppable on my website, which is henrikatonder.com. So if you want to do, it's like a great guide starter kit that you can download from my website, and you can that will help you gain clarity on your vision, on your values, on your character goals. So if ever that can be of help to you, I would be happy for you to have that. And feel free to ask any questions about anything even after this. So thank you very much, and I hope this was of use, service, and joy to you. And now, please, maybe we could, I have Anne before we finish. Now I had thought about answering some of your questions, but also we really wanted to have you mingle, and we wanted to, Inka, what do you think? Do we take the questions now or later, or do we do a mingle now? What do you think would be, what do you guys want?
Maybe if we would do, we have a little over 20 minutes left, so maybe if we take few questions here, we can maybe even stop the recording at this point, so you feel free to ask the